Punjabi Gopi Janaval Girivaraja Vishnudananda Natira Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र श्री श्रीमद एसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य बीबीटी फाउंडर आचार्य हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की समवेद भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग की गौर प्रेमानंदी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भगत्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So welcome to this evening discussion on the Bhagavad Dharma series. Again, the bass is a little too much. You can keep your mobiles in silent. So yesterday we began with this Bhagavad Dharma series, and I was mentioning that how this Bhagavad Dharma series is a very important topic in the Srimad Bhagavatam, And it is also a very important topic for us because right in this beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, bhakti has been established as the abhidheya. And it is not just bhakti, it is Shuddha Bhakti. So, yesterday I was giving the background of this whole discussion that ultimately Vyas offers his prayers to the Absolute Truth, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And in the first three verses, which are the part of the Mangala Charan verses, Sambandha Abhiday and Prayojan is established. And then he takes the scene to the sages of Naimisharanya, where the sages headed by Shaunakadi Rishi are performing a 1,000-year sacrifice for those who are going to come in Kali Yuga, for them who are going to be born after 5,000 years, you can say. Kali Yuga is going to begin. So, understanding the effects of Kali Yuga, so they begin the sacrifice, and Sut Goswami arrives there. So, they receive him with proper respect, give him an asana, glorify him, and they put forth 6 questions. And out of the 6 questions, the first 2 questions are very generic questions. What is the highest benefit for all humanity? Ekanta Shraya. And what is the essence of all scriptures? What is the essence of scriptures by which Yenatma Suprasiti, one can be completely satisfied? And then they put forth questions about Krishna. Why did Krishna take birth as a son of Vasudeva and Devaki? And explain the Purusha avatars and the Leela avatars. And now that Krishna has disappeared, where Dharma and Gyan have taken shelter. So, after asking these 6 questions, Sut Goswami offers his prayers, offers his Mangalacharan to the scripture which he is going to recite, Narayan Namaskritya, thanks the sages for asking questions, and begins answering from 1 to 6 onwards. And yesterday we saw this verse, Savai Pumsan Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje Ahityakyat Apratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. So yesterday we had a quite good discussion about this verse, what this verse means. That there is Paravidya and Aparavidya. There is Paradharma and Aparadharma. So for all humanity, Sut Goswami recommends that one should practice bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. One should practice Shuddha Bhakti. And this Shuddha Bhakti is called as Sadhana Bhakti. Savai Pumsan Paro Dharma. It is called as Sadhana Bhakti. Yator Bhakti Radokshaja is by which Sadhana Bhakti, by which one attains Prema Bhakti. And only by practicing this Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti, which is Ahetuki and Apratihata, which is uninterrupted. And Ahetuki means it is Anya Bilashita Shunyam, performed with no other desire except the desire to please the Lord. All actions are done for that. Ahetuki also, in another sense, as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions, is that bhakti is self-causative, or bhakti only causes bhakti. The self-manifesting nature of bhakti was established. Yesterday we had that long discussion of different arguments and how bhakti is said to be self-causative. And only by this Shuddha Bhakti, Yenatma Suprasidati, by which the Atma will be completely satisfied. So yesterday we had this discussion. So after establishing this, then In the next verse, what is that satisfaction of the mind which happens? No, he explains in that. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. This satisfaction takes the form of different moods in the form of Sakya, Dasya, Vatsalya and Madhurya Ras. That Bhakti Yoga which has attained Prayojan. Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Prakrishrepena Yojita. Which has attained Prayojan. That means Sadhana Bhakti has transformed into Sadhya Bhakti or Bhava Bhakti. Then what happens? Janeti Ashu. It quickly bestows what? Vairagyam and Jnanam. Another thing here which I'd like to point is here Jnanam means also not only Bhagavat Sambandhit Jnan as we discussed yesterday, means hearing and chanting about the Lord. This is all Bhagavat Sambandhit Jnan. Jnanam means also realization of the Lord, form, name, qualities, and pastimes. It's realization. So we have Jnana, but whether we have that Vijnan, realization, that's very important. So that realization is very important. We might have realized that this material world, we might have heard and understood that material world is a miserable place because we have suffered. But that realization must have not deeply dawned in the heart, right? So only when the Gyan transforms into Vigyan, then we can say that we have realized knowledge. So here Jnanam also refers to what? Realized knowledge. Because there is realization of what? Lord's name, form, qualities and pastimes. And yesterday we were discussing quite in detail, although we have been practicing bhakti, I don't know about others, but Vairagya, as this verse is mentioning, to have developed detachment from this material world is not so easy. Because why? Bhakti Yoga has not come to the stage of Prayojan, or Bhakti Yoga has not yet begun in the form of Sadhana Bhakti, which is Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti. That's what we were discussing yesterday. Now, after establishing in these two verses that the highest Ekanta Shraya and the essence, what the essence of all scriptures is that one should practice Bhakti. Now he proves that by negative inference that what is not parodharma, that just practicing varnashram and being situated in varnashram one doesn't develop attraction for Vasudeva Kataruchi, then his practice of varnashram is what? Shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama eva, certainly. And then he, there is emphasis again. And kevalam, only. It is only Shrama, nothing else. So yesterday we had also a long discussion on this, understanding of how uh, Varnashram Dharma is based on what? Swabhava. And there is Swakarma and there is Swadharma. And that Swadharma is called as Varnashram. But there is the Swabhava of the soul, which is pure devotional service to the Supreme Soul, which is pure devotional service. But when we take up to devotional service, then there should be no pure devotional service. I mean, there should be no activities based on the Swabhava. But in the conditioned state, there are conditional activities and there are constitutional activities. The conditional activities are the activities based on our nature which are done for the maintenance of our body in this world. But the constitutional activities are the activities of the soul in relationship to the Supreme Soul, which is pure devotional service, the Navvidha Bhakti. So only when we become free from the conditionings and we are situated on the transcendental platform where the influence of the modes is not there, then we can constantly be doing only what? Constitutional activities. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimashvita bhajanti ananyamanaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam satatam kirtayanto ma. It's not, you know, at some only some time. It is what? Satatam. Yatantascha Dridhavrata. And he performs it with great determination. So, that determination has come because he's on the transcendental platform. Because he's beyond the modes, beyond the influence of the modes. Esham to antagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. Te dvandava moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrata. So as long as the effects of the modes are there in the form of passion and ignorance and in the form of desire and greed, till then the bhajan is not Dridhavrata because the conditionings of papa and punya on our swabhava are troubling us. So as we practice devotional service, which is a balance between constitutional and conditional activities, and gradually we increase the constitutional activities as we become free from the influence of the modes. And then when we are completely on the transcendental platform, then our bhajan becomes what? Dhrida Vrata. So till then, one can be situated in a varnashram and perform his conditional duties, at the same time develop taste for Harikatha. And when he becomes completely disgusted to do any activities based on his conditioned nature, nirvinna sarva karmasu happens, then he can take up to only pure devotional service. From there, pure devotional service begins, or from there, sadhana bhakti begins. So that was the point. And that's why if one is situated in varnashram and is only doing varnashram duties and is not developing taste for Harikatha, Nodpadet Yadiratim, then all his Varnashram duties are what? Shrama Evahi Kevalam. Now, from 8 onwards till 13, there is a discussion where Suta Goswami is going to conclude that ultimately, what is the purpose of Varnashram? The purpose of Varnashram is not Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Dharma, Artha, Kama, and like that rotate in the cycle of birth and death. That ultimately it is meant for attaining pure devotional service. So that's why he mentions dharmasya hi apavargasya. Dharma is performed for apavarga. So here dharma in the form of hearing and chanting, which is bhakti, is performed for attaining prema by devotees and not for artha. Arthaya na arthaya artha arthaya upakalpate. And then na arthasya kama. And artha is not meant for kama. One who are dharma inkantasya. So yesterday we were discussing how the jnanis and yogis, they are also performing dharma in the form of jnana sadhana or ashtanga yoga sadhana for the purpose for liberation. And they also don't aspire for artha or kama. It is only the karmis who aspire for artha and kama, and that's why they perform dharma. The real reason they perform for dharma is not for dharma, But for attaining artha, everyone follows dharma. That is the reason. But it is only the jnanis, yogis, and the bhaktas who are transcendentalists, who have a transcendental goal. The jnanis and yogis also perform, their dharmas of yoga sadhana or jnana sadhana, yama niyam or shama and dama, to ultimately attain liberation, not for artha or kama. And the devotees, perform hearing and chanting to attain prema bhakti. So yesterday I was mentioning that uh, it is a natural sequence that when we perform dharma, artha and kama will come. It will come. So the devotees use the artha in the service of the Lord and his devotees. And that's why Mahaprabhu is praying what? Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitamba jagadish kame, mama janmanishware, bhavatar bhakti rahe ahetuki. Let me attain ahetuki bhakti. So this is how, you know, when we start practicing sadhana bhakti, especially Shuddha sadhana bhakti, then all this will start coming. Now, because we are not at that platform, we might not be experiencing. But when we start practicing it, then we start seeing that, so much of artha and calm is coming. And that time it is a test for a devotee. So this is how the dharma ekantasya, or dharma which is performed with the exclusive goal for attaining prema bhakti and nothing else for the Lord, they are very clear that the real purpose of dharma is what. Okay. So then we are going to now begin with the discussion from here. So in the previous verse it was mentioned that dharma is not one for artha, and neither artha is meant for calm. But with artha, calm comes. So then how one should treat it? How? So that follows the discussion here in this verse. So let us recite this verse. Kamasya nendra priti labho jivet yavata जीवस्य तत्व जिज्ञासा नार्तो यश्चेह कर्मभिः. So with dharma, artha will come, material gain. So how material gain has to be utilized? This verse speaks. Kamasya na indriya priti. For one who desires apavarga was mentioned in the previous verse. Dharmasya apavargasya. Sense pleasure, kamasya, attained from enjoying sense objects. Indriya priti is not, na, the goal, as long as one lives. Jiveta yavita. So Prabhupada also, Labho Jiveta Yavata is meant for self-preservation. He says self-preservation. The goal of life is inquiry into the highest truth. Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. What is accomplished by prescribed duties, yaha cha iha karmabi, is not the goal, na artha. So the prescribed duties, karma, what you do, that is not the goal. That is not for what we do for our artha, but it is for what? Only for as much as is required for maintenance. Because ultimately the goal is what? Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. So Srila Prabhupada in this purport explains that generally people with economic development, when there is wealth, then they want to satisfy their senses. And everyone in this world is drawn to do action in order to enjoy the senses. That is the general tendency of every conditioned soul, he says. But here in this verse, Sutta Goswami is proving what? That life goal is not meant for that. Life goal is meant for what? Tattva Jigyasa. Life goal is meant for Tattva Jigyasa. And Prabhupada mentions that a serious student is so much, occupied in researching the absolute truth that he has no time for sense gratification. And sometimes even for self-preservation of the body also. He doesn't have time. So that should be how a serious inquisitive person who is researching on the absolute truth. That should be what the mood. So one of my teacher was mentioning a true story. He was telling when he was a student in the Banaras University, they were studying Sanskrit grammar. And every day you have to, you know, study these, sutras and all the aksharas. And he was telling that one of his friend, he was quite young and handsome, his colleague, and both were studying together. Both were in the Banaras University, studying this grammar under a teacher. And one of the ladies had told him that I want to meet you, please come in the afternoon to the garden. But this student, young boy, was so absorbed in his study of grammar that he forgot about the appointment. And this is with not, relishing Krishna Katha or relishing Krishna's beauty. It was just with studying Sanskrit grammar. Just that aksharas had so much intoxication, nectar. Aksharam hi paramam. Hmm? Aksharanam akarasmi. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Vibhuti Yoga. So this akshara means indestructible. And the Lord is also indestructible. Hmm? Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropi san. Avyayatma, I am indestructible. So just by reciting or ucharan of these aksharas, all these aksharas, one can attain liberation for your kind information. One who is throughout his life absorbed in Sanskrit grammar, he can attain liberation. Because these aksharas are the absolute truth. Aksharanam akarasmi. So in every akshar you there is a, right? So that is me, the absolute truth, Krishna is saying. So without their knowledge, they can attain the Lord. So Prabhupada in the purport mentions that a person is so much absorbed in research of the absolute truth that he has no time for sense gratification. So that is how much we should research in the absolute truth. And we have enough. The Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita is sufficient for us. And those who have aptitude, there is a lot. You can't you know, even this lifetime will be also not sufficient. Just on the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have various Acharyas commentaries. And what to speak, in the 10th canto, we have different Acharyas commentaries. So, one should be absorbed in what? Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. And whatever is required for just maintaining the body, self-preservation, that much only he should, know, give to the senses. Okay? And not enjoy the senses. So, sense gratification is compared to salt. Sense gratification is compared to salt. If it is too much, then you can't eat the food. Yes? If it is too little, then also you can't eat. Yes? Both ways. So, too much sense gratification will be an obstacle. You will be misusing the body and it will not be suitable. It will cause so much ill health, so many problems. And no sense gratification at all also is not good for your health. So both ways, a balance is required. So that's why Prabhupada explained sense gratification to salt. Too little, can't do. Too much also, you can't do. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he used to honor the prasad, it is to be mixed with extreme salt. And nobody would honor his Mahaprasad because they could not handle it. So much salt he used to eat. You know, nobody can do that. But his Prasad, used to have too much salt. They could not, you know, honor the Mahaprasad also. It was so difficult to handle. So much salt has to be there. So this is the goal. Kamasya na indriya priti. And life is meant for researching the absolute truth. Jivasya tattva jigyasa. So what is that tattva? That is being explained in this verse. Interestingly, another point which Vishwanath Chandra Thakur brings out here, which I want to bring, he says that the Jnanis and the Yogis who are practicing their Jnana sadhana, they undergo happiness or they go undergo suffering also because of their prarabdhas. And they understand that their happiness is because of good pious activities they have done, and the suffering also is because of the prarabdha karma. And they have to undergo that prarabdha karma also. Even a Jivan Mukta, a Jnani who is liberated by the Jnana path has to undergo the prarabdha karma. And until his prarabdha karma is over, completed, although he has reached the stage of Jivan Mukta stage, but because his prarabdha karma is remaining, he has to stay in that body till then. And remember, he is liberated. He is liberated. And he has to suffer the reactions. And it's not only this lifetime. Sometimes the prarabdha karma, because of some activities, he might have to suffer many lifetimes. So the jnanis and yogis are, supposed to suffer their prarabdha karma. But the glory of the path of bhakti and the glory of the holy name is such that even by taking namabhas, one is free from all karmas, prarabdha and aprarabdha, and one need not suffer the reaction for it. This is the glory of namabhas. This is the glory of namabhas. So, in this context, Vishwanath Chakra Thakur mentions that the happiness the devotees experience, the happiness the devotees experience in bhakti, that happiness is not because of their punya. That happiness is given by bhakti itself. Like in the kirtan, we are all dancing. So that happiness what you are experiencing is not because of punya. That happiness is coming from bhakti. And the distress, devotees also face distress, right? So the distress what a devotee suffers is either given by the Lord directly or it is because of offenses the devotee has committed in his spiritual practices. So this is what the devotee, however, perceives happiness to be the result of bhakti only. They regard suffering as the mercy of the Lord. Yasyaham anugranami harishe tadhanam shane tato dhanam tajantyasya swajana dukkha dukkhitam. If I especially favor someone, yasya aham anugranami, I gradually deprive him of his wealth. Harishe tadhanam shane. Then the relatives and friends of such a poverty-stricken man abandon him. Tato adhanam tajanti asya swajana. In this way, he suffers one distress after another. Dukkha dukkhitam. Taking the statement of the Lord into consideration, according to the particular case, the devotee's suffering should be regarded as direct action of the Lord or the result of devotional offense. This is very, very important. Now, I want to bring a very important point here that in a devotee's life, when suffering comes, generally one whose faith is not very deep, what is his thought process and what is his consciousness? That one has to evaluate. Does he think like that? That it is all coming because of the Lord's mercy and I accept it wholeheartedly? It depends on his consciousness. Generally, his faith is shaken that time when suffering comes because he has no deep and complete faith in the Lord or in the bhakti or in the process of bhakti. And that's why he questions, why is suffering coming to me? Why me? So when you are asking like this that means you have not realized the import of the scriptures. You don't have that Shastri Shraddha. So your Shraddha is what? In between. Sometimes here, sometimes there. It is still, right? So one has to evaluate based on one's own this. Now, what is that absolute truth? This verse, Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa was told. So, what is that Tattva? That absolute truth is being described here in this verse. This verse is where the definition of absolute truth is being given. Let us recite this verse together. वदन्ति तत्त्वविदस्तत्त्वं यज्ञानमद्वयं ब्रह्मेति परमात्मेति भगवान iti shabdate. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the narration of the manifestation of Srimad Bhagavatam to us, how it happened in the Bauma Leela. This is given in the Narad Vyas Samvad. After Narad Muni instructs Vyas, Vyas sat in meditation in his ashram in Badrika, and after doing his oblations to Saraswati, in meditation, in divine vision, which is called as Divya Pratyaksh, in his divine vision, he saw Krishna, the absolute truth, and he saw Maya, which was behind, because she was feeling shame to come, and he saw how jivas are entangled in Maya. And he saw the solution. The solution was Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vyas had a mystic vision by which he realized and saw the absolute truth, where he saw the absolute truth. But for those sadhakas who want to realize the absolute truth, Srimad Bhagavatam is the scripture. Srimad Bhagavatam is the scripture by which we can realize that absolute truth. Vedam Vastavam Vastu. Shivadam. Tapatrayon Moolanam. So the absolute truth, Vastavam Vastu can be realized in this scripture, Atra, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that absolute truth we can realize by following this verse, not how Vyas realized in his mystic vision. That is not possible for us. That in divine mystic vision, we will see Krishna and Maya and how we are entangled in Maya. No. We can realize by understanding the definition of absolute truth. So that definition of absolute truth is given in this truth. Vadanti. Vadanti means they say, or the knowers. Who tat? Tat is that absolute truth. Tattvavidas, the knowers of the truth. And that tattvam yat jnanam advayam. Call this truth advayam jnana. Our Prabhupada says it is one non-dual substance. Advayam. The supreme conscious being who is called iti shabdati, Brahman by the Jnanis, Brahmeti, Paramatma by the yogis, Paramatmeti, and Bhagavan by the devotees. So this is the definition of absolute truth. That absolute truth is called as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And it is that one absolute truth, Advayam. It is Advayam, that is one absolute truth, but it is perceived as different by the Jnanis as Brahman, by the yogis as Paramatma, and by the devotees as Bhagavan. Brahman is all pervading consciousness. So the Jnanis perceive the absolute truth as all pervading consciousness. The yogis perceive him as the witness, Sakshi, who is there in this universe. He is the Hiranyagarbha or Garbhodakshai Vishnu, right? The yogis who meditate on Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Paramatma feature of the Lord, who is also situated as a localized Paramatma as Shirodakshai Vishnu, right? And the bhaktas worship Bhagwan, Shadaishwarya Purn Bhagwan. So all these three have different perspectives of the absolute truth. It doesn't mean that there are three different absolute truths. The absolute truth is one, but he is perceived differently. So here in this chart we have put the level of realization, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan. What they realize, the Jnanis realize the Sat feature of the absolute truth. The yogis realize the Sat and the Chit feature of the absolute truth. And the bhaktas realize the Sat, Chit and the Anand feature of the absolute truth. Now please hear very carefully. Brahman is Satchidanand. Paramatma is Satchidanand. And Bhagwan is also Satchidanand. Because the absolute truth is what? Advayam. But the Jnani, because he is far away from the absolute truth, he can only realize the Sat feature of the absolute truth. And the yogi is a little near, so he can realize the Sat and the Chit feature of the absolute. Although the absolute truth is Sat, Chit and Anand. Whereas the Bhakta can realize all the three aspects of the absolute truth, Sat, Chit and Anand. So to understand this, the Acharya has given an example. And the example is, we like this example. The example is of gulab jamun. So the absolute truth is compared to gulab jamun. You can take care of it there. So, the absolute truth is compared to what? Gulab Jamun. Okay. Everyone is very happy hearing that. Maybe today in the prasad, I hope there is no gulab jamun. Or there is. So gulab jamun has these different features. So what are the different features in the gulab jamun? What are the features in the gulab jamun? Yes, juice, okay. It is sweet to taste. Then what does the gulab jamun different features has? It is soft. It's not, yeah, it's soft also and a little crispy because it is fried in ghee. We are speaking about ghee gulab jamuns. Okay. Ah, its texture is brown. What is the shape? Round. Okay, or spherical. And what about the smell? It has also smell, na? Okay. Fragrance. So let's take now some features of the gulab jamun. The fragrance, hmm, the shape, color, texture, and the taste. In fact, they say the whatever we offer to the Lord Krishna, the bhoga, every item should have, you know, these features. Like you make hot pulao. That pulao should have smells because when the fragrance comes, then the fire is ignited because that fragrance enters the nose and that thirst to have, and then it should be hot and it should be also good to touch. The touch sensation should be satisfied. Or you take the example of samosa, right? The samosa smell, fragrance is there, right? And the texture, it should be crispy. And the shape also of the samosa, if it is not in good shape, then you don't feel like it should be good to look at the shape also. And then ultimately it has to have taste. Otherwise, so like that, all these features are there. So let us take now in the gulab jamun the fragrance, the shape, color, texture, and the taste. So this is the absolute truth. Now the mother is making hot gulab jamuns, frying them in ghee and dipping them in sugar syrup. And the son is sitting on the first floor and studying for his exams. And he realizes that there are gulab jamuns being made. How does he realize? Just the fragrance. And now he tries to go from the first floor to the ground floor, but the mother has locked from the first floor. So he cannot come there also. He is realizing the gulab jamun, but only through the fragrance. He is not even able to see it. Okay, okay. So this is like that jnani who is far away from the absolute truth. He can realize just a dim glimpse of the absolute truth in the form of the such feature of the absolute. That absolute truth is eternal, eternity aspect of the absolute truth. Now the yogi, you know, he realizes that the absolute truth is not only just consciousness. Now that jnanam for the jnanis, advaya jnana is what? Brahman, correct? They realize that as jnana. Now, what is that conception of Brahman is there is no knower, there is no known, but there is only what exists is consciousness. What exists is only consciousness. So this is that it's an abstract concept. I'll just give an example to understand that. Okay. Now I am the subject. I'm an individual conscious being, right? And our Prashant Prabhu will become immediately conscious now. See, Prashant Prabhu for me is the object. Okay, he is also a conscious being, but I am the subject, he is the object. And the subject, this is India. Absolutely no etiquette when they come to the temple. Even among devotees, they right in the front of the altar they speak loudly. You know. Over the phone also they speak loudly. It's a big disease here in India, not in the Western world. It's like it's considered a great offense. You know. So the subject is perceiving the object, you know, and I am conscious that I am perceiving the object. The object also becomes conscious that somebody is perceiving me, right? And there is a stream of consciousness flowing from the subject and the object, right? But according to this Brahman concept, there is no subject, there is no object, there is no knower, there is no known. All that is there is what? Only consciousness, the all pervading consciousness. So, this is some abstract concept for your understanding. Okay. Whereas Chit, the Sat and the Chit feature is like that yogi. That that consciousness is a person who is witnessing. I am conscious that he is witnessing my activities and he is conscious of me. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. I am seeing him, he is seeing me. So this is Shantaras. That's it. There is adoration. So the absolute truth, when he takes off a form of a conscious entity in the form of witness. That is the all-pervading, aspect of the absolute truth, which is in the form of this universe. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu and in the heart as Sirodakshaya when they. So there is Chit. I become conscious that there is a conscious person who's perceiving me. He is perceiving me, I am perceiving him. And that's why these yogis try to meditate on the Paramatma in the heart. Right? So these are the yogis. So they are able to realize the chit feature of the absolute truth. So this is like that person who is from the first floor able to come to the kitchen and he is now smelling the fragrance of gulab jamun. He is seeing that they are brownish, dark brownish, and he is able to see that their texture is also what? Coarse. And there is hot steam also coming out from the gulab jamuns. And they are shining because it is dipped in sugar syrup. You know, he is able to touch it also and feel, but he cannot taste it because mother stops him. You cannot have it. Go and stay out from the kitchen. So he is able to see the absolute truth. He is able to perceive it, but he is not able to taste it. Whereas the bhakta is one who is able to not only smell the fragrance, touch, see the texture, but able to eat the gulab jamun. He is able to taste the gulab jamun. And only when you taste the gulab jamun, you will become happy. Anand. Okay. So the bhakta is the one who is able to put the gulab jamun in his mouth. So he is able to realize the sat, chit and the ananda feature. The ananda feature. So our acharyas explain they're just like some it's they explain with the example of a myopic vision. You know, sometimes if you have 6 by 6 vision, then you can see the deities, right? But somebody who has, specs with -5 or -10, one of our brahmacharis, he has -10. And from far away, when he sees, he just can't see anything, no DT, he just sees some light. That's it. So somebody who's far away, with myopic vision, like, -10, right? For me also, far things I can't see much. It's just some blur or something. So similarly, the deities are there, beautiful Jagannath or Shyam Sundar, Radha Krishna. But from far away, it's just some light. So these are what? The Brahman, who can realize only the Sat feature. And when you go a little near, when the vision is still, not 6 by 6 complete, but it's still some -2.5 lens, then you can see there are some features. Oh, there are some beautiful limbs, and there is, anklets. So they are able to understand, but they are not able to see the full beauty of the Lord's form. And when you have complete 6 by 6 vision, then you can see the beautiful form that is a person, the absolute truth is person. So like that. Sat, Chit and Anand. So all the three are having, they're seeing the same absolute truth, Advaya. But their realization is different because of their perception. Because they are being far away from the absolute truth. So that is that Advaya Gyan. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So Prabhupada gives this example of the sunshine, the sun disk, and then the sun god within the sun disk. He's a person, so like that. Okay, now the absolute truth has been defined. Now, how do we realize this absolute truth? What is the practice by which we can realize this absolute truth? So, this is being described in this verse, the 12th verse. So let us take the 12th verse. Tat Shaddadhana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyant Atmani Chatmanam Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage. Tat Shaddadhana Munayo. Tat refers to that absolute truth. Vadanti tat tattvadas, that absolute truth. So a seriously inquisitive sage, Munaya, Shraddhadhana, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya, realizes that absolute truth, Pashyante Atmani Chatmanam, by rendering devotional service after hearing from Guru. Bhaktya Shruta Grihitaya. Now, this is a very important verse which describes the practice one has to do to realize that absolute truth which is explained in the previous verse. So, here, Pashyanti Atmana. Pashyanti Atmana is the person. If he is a Jnani, he realizes Atmani, the aspect of the absolute truth, as what? Brahman. And he'll say Tattvam Asi. Whereas if he is a yogi, then he'll realize the absolute truth as what? Paramatma. And if he is a devotee, then he'll realize that it is Shyam Sundar, Krishna, Bhagavan. Premanjuna Churita Bhakti Vilochana. So based on the path what they take, they'll realize that aspect of the absolute truth. Now Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya means it's very important here. Those who are Jnanis and Vairagis, that is the yogis, they have to practice Jnana and Vairagya in order to realize either the Brahman or the Paramatma as absolute truth. But for the devotees, they have to practice Bhaktya Shuta Grihitaya. They have to practice the limbs of bhakti in the form of hearing and chanting. And by this practice of bhakti, automatically they will realize the absolute truth, and Gyan and Vairagya will automatically manifest in the devotee. They need not have to separately practice Gyan and Vairagya. Gyan and Vairagya are byproducts of bhakti. And this has been already established by Suta Goswami. Where does Suta Goswami establish this? That Gyan and Vairagya are byproducts of bhakti? वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजित जनेते आशु वैराग्यम ज्ञानम यद अहेतुकम. So this is, how we have to understand. Now, interestingly, Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, when he discusses the 64 limbs of bhakti, then what are the not the limbs of bhakti he discusses. And there he brings out that Varnashram is not the limb of bhakti, because Varnashram is karma. And if you're doing karma, then there is karma varna happening. Then it doesn't fit in the definition of sadhana bhakti or uttama bhakti, right? So varnashram is not the limb of bhakti. He establishes that. Jnana and vairagya also not the limbs of bhakti. He establishes. Because in the Navvida bhakti, is there any limb called as jnana and vairagya? No. Shravanam, kirtanam, Vishnu, smaranam, padasevanam. Archanam, vandam, dasyam, sakyam, atmanivedam. So there is no limb of jnana and vairagya which we practice. But he says that in the beginning, initial, Gyan and Vairagya, you know, in the beginning may be helpful, and they are not so opposed to Bhakti in the beginning. But actually, with the practice of Bhakti, Bhakti being the Sarup Shakti of the Lord and being independent, it doesn't need the support of Gyan and Vairagya. Bhakti being independent. So that's what Rupa Goswami says. And it is just like sometimes, you are young, energetic, and you are climbing a mountain and you know how to climb. At the same time, you try to take some support of some clips and hooks or some stick, right? And with this, you climb. And ultimately, when you are up climbing there, when you're there, you don't need these supports, right? So in the beginning, it may be, useful, but they are not the limbs of bhakti. So this is what he establishes. And Krishna also says that separate cultivation of Gyan and Vairagya are forbidden for pure bhakti. For pure bhakti it is forbidden. And Krishna puts it in the Uddhav Gita. Tasman mat bhakti uktasya yogino vai madatmana na jnanam na cha vairagyam prayasheyo bhavetiha. Therefore, Tasman, for a devotee engaged in my loving service, mad bhakti yuktas yogina vai, with fixed mind on me, mad atmana. So you can see, what is this devotee? His mind is fixed on me, not anything else. The cultivation of knowledge and renunciation generally not the means. Na jnanam na cha vairagyam praya, for achieving the highest perfection within this world. Shreyo bhave iha. So all the acharyas confer with this conclusion. And it is interesting that in the practice of Shuddha Bhakti, sometimes sadhakas do different types of prayas. Different types of prayas. There is sometimes bhog prayas, then there is sometimes karma prayas, then there is sometimes jnana prayas, there is sometimes Vairagya Prayas. And especially among all this, there is Vairagya Prayas sometimes. But the Acharyas explain all these are nothing to do with bhakti. In the cultivation of bhakti, one has to do bhakti prayas only. What is that bhakti prayas? The endeavor here to come to the temple, to come and hear Krishna Katha. The endeavor to sit properly and chant the holy names. So that is the prayas a devotee has to do. But if one starts doing too much endeavor to do what? Vairagya. Then that becomes Vairagya prayas. And that is detrimental in the practice of pure devotional service. Because Vairagya naturally comes when there is complete attraction for Krishna. There is complete detachment from material world. There is no endeavor required to become detached from the material world. When the mind is attached to Krishna, then it is detached from matter. So that's the point. Now, Sud Goswami concludes in this verse. Let's recite this verse. Atah pumbirjvidashreshtha varnashrama vibhagasha sanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. O best of the Brahmanas, Dvijashreshta. Sud Goswami is addressing the sages there. Atha, Atha here means now is concluding the discussion. The discussion of conclusion is from Dharma Swanishtita Pumsan Vishwaksena Katasuya 1 to 8. From there to here 13. This inner section he is concluding the discussion. Atha Pumbir Dvidashreshta Varnashrama Vidavesha. Complete perfection of Dharma. Swanishthitasya Dharmasya. That means you be situated in a Varnashram. According to the divisions of Varnashram, Varnashram by men, Pumbir is pleasing the Lord. Samsiddhir Hari Toshanam. That means you can be situated in a Varnashram, and being situated in a Varnashram, you can what? Do pure devotional activities. And only pure devotional activities pleases the Lord. But being situated in your Varnashram, you do Varnashram activities. Then it is what? Shama eva hi kevala. And you don't develop attraction for Krishna Katha, then all your performance of Varnashram duties is futile. So Prabhupada said that the Krishna conscious movement will flourish with the agrarian revolution. That when devotees take up to what? The agrarian revolution, the agrarian lifestyle. Agrarian means agriculture. Because when you are doing this natural agriculture, you are living in nature, you have time to chant Hare Krishna. That's it. City people have no time to chant. You have time from early morning Mangal Arati till the Bhagavatam class, and from evening till night, and you have all the time to chant. You can save time to chant Hare Krishna. So then you're situated in this kind of a lifestyle, and you're having full time to hear Harikatha. That is the perfection. I hope you got the point what this verse Sutta Goswami is concluding. Now, this also verse mentions how perfection directly through bhakti, even though he does not perform the karmas. So, if somebody is situated in Varnashram and is not performing the Varnashram karmas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, right? then will he incur sin? Because he is not performing his varnashram duties, will he incur sin? No, he will not incur sin because he has taken up a superior dharma in the form of pure devotional service. So there is, he will not incur. So this Krishna only establishes again in the Uddhav Gita. Yat karma yat tapasa jnana vairagayascha yat yogena dhana dharmena shreyo itare sarvam mad bhakti yogena mad bhakto labate anjasa swargapavargam mad dham kadachit yadi vanchati. Everything that can be achieved by fruitive activities, yat karma penance, yat tapasa, knowledge, jnana, detachment, vairagayatascha, mystic yoga, yat yogena, charity, dhan, religious duties, dharmena, and all other means of perfecting life, shayobhiritarapi, is easily achieved by devotee, mad bhakto, through loving service unto me. Sarvam mad bhakti yogena. If some or other, please hear this very interesting. Kadachit, my devotee desires. Kadachit yadi vanchati, promotion to heaven, swarga, liberation, apavargam, or residence in my abode, madhama, he easily achieves such meditations. Labate anjasa. Now this verse requires some explanation. Firstly, you have to understand that the path of karma, which is there in the varnashram, is meant to achieve swarga. And the path of jnana or ashtanga is meant to achieve upper varga, in the form of liberation. So, a devotee doesn't follow karma or jnana, but without following karma and jnana, he can attain swarga and liberation. I hope you got this point. Interestingly, okay, to attain Swarga, one has to follow karma, the path of karma in the Varnashram. And to attain liberation, one has to follow the path of Jnana or Ashtanga. Okay? After one does karma and Nishkam karma becomes Sthitapagya, then is qualified for Jnana. Now a devotee, he'll neither follow the path of karma or Jnana or Ashtanga, but still he can attain Swarga or Apavarga, liberation. But then, what kind of a devotee he is? Because devotee means he doesn't desire Swarga nor liberation. But that's why Krishna is saying, Kadachit yadi vanchati. Mad bhakta, my devotee. And Krishna is saying last, Mad dhama. Or he can attain my abode. So, a pure devotee's definition, according to Rupa Goswami, is that Salokya Shashti Samipya Saropya Diyamanam na grinanti Vina Bhakt Sevanam Jana. So even if I give the abode, in my own dham, still that is the definition of Anya Bilashita Shunyam. That among the five liberations, the first one is outright rejected. That is Sayuj. But even the four are nati viruddhyate. They are not so much against devotional service, but even you know, they are not desired by a pure devotee. These come in the gradations of mukti spruha. There is sukha aishwarya and premuttara. Sukha aishwarya means shashti. Shashti means what? You attain the same opulence as the Lord. Can you imagine that in Vaikuntha? So there is that aishwarya which you have. So that is also tinged. It is mixed. It is not pure. So pure devotional service means you are free from that also. That you don't even want what? To attain residence in Vaikuntha. So Sukh, Aishwarya and Premuttara. But the Ekanta Bhaktas, they are just attracted to the form of Govinda in Vrindavan. Huh? So they wouldn't aspire for even these five types of liberation. So Kadachit Yadi Vanchati means that these are all pure devotees, but sometimes they want to go to Swarga. Just like the example of Chitraketu. He was with the Gandharvas because he was feeling compassion for them. So in order to, you know, you know, preach the glories of the Lord, so he was there. That was the reason that he wanted to go to Swarga. And there are sometimes pure devotees who feel a lot of compassion for those who are what? In the Brahma Jyoti, absorbed in the bliss of Brahma Jyoti, and they are in the Brahma Jyoti. To preach them, they might go to the Brahma Jyoti. You know? So like that. So Kadachi Deyad Vanchati means what? That if somehow my devotee desires, then Krishna understands and fulfills their desire because he knows that there is a higher purpose. Otherwise, devotees are what? Anya Bilashita Shunya. They are free from Bhukti Spruha and Mukti Spruha. Mukti Spruha right from Brahma Jyoti up till Vaikunta. All these gradations of Mukti Spruha you have to be free. And then your bhakti is Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti. One of my friend, when I called him after many years. I said, how are you doing? He said, I just came back from the ICU. I said, what happened? Some chemical imbalance was there in the ear, and 5 days I was in the ICU. And what had happened, I also don't know. They did a lot of tests, and from the ICU, when I came out, I was in consciousness, and I was completely lying on the bed there in terrible pain. I was in terrible pain for those few days when I came out of the ICU, I was telling me. And then at that time I was praying to Krishna, Krishna, please give me freedom from this misery. Please give me mukti from this condition. So at last he was released from the hospital and he had come back home. And when he had just come back home, I had given a call. And he started reflecting that, what kind of prayer, I prayed to Krishna that, please make me free from this, condition of suffering. So he could realize that prayer was not a pure devotional prayer. So he was lamenting. And I said, and he was feeling a little bad about it. Then I explained him that you see, you had this liberation in the form of being liberated from that condition of the hospital. And that anartha was there, it came out, and you prayed, and now you're lamenting. So this lamenting is purifying you so that you are elevating to a next step. Understand that. So for me, sometimes liberation means when will my stomach get cleared? I'll feel liberated. So everyone has different conceptions and understandings of liberation, right? Now you all must be feeling when I'll become liberated from this class. And we'll go and take prasadam. Yes? So liberation is different concepts and conceptions and levels. Ultimately, the highest levels are you're free from even the desire for what? Attaining Vaikuntha. The four types of liberation which are not so ativiruddha bhakti. So then, when you're free from bhukti and mukti spruha, then you're anya bilashita shunyam. That's the point. So here that point which I mentioned, that Rupa Goswami mentions that Varnashrama, not the limbs of Bhakti and Bhakti Rasamrita. I'm just taking that now here. So Rupa Goswami says, Sammatam Bhakti Vijnanam Bhakti Angatvam Na Karmanam. He says the consensus of those knowledge of Bhakti, those who have deep knowledge of Bhakti, their consensus, Sammatam, is that karma, Varnashram duties, is not an anga of Bhakti. It is not an anga of Bhakti. Bhakti angas are what? Anyone knows? Yes, the 64 limbs, right? In the Vaidisana Bhakti. But there is no karma there. So Varnashram is not the anga of Bhakti. Then he says, some may argue as follows. True, there is glorification of all the angas of pure Bhakti above all other processes. But Parashar has glorified karma as well. Parashar in the Parashar Samhita or in the Vishnu Puran has glorified what? Varna Shamacharavata Purushena Parapuman Vishnu Aradate Panta Nanya Tattosha Karanam. So Parashar is saying what? The Supreme Lord Vishnu, Parapuman Vishnu, is to be worshipped by man. Purushena Aradite. How? Through the duties of Varnashram. Varnashrama Acharavata. And he is saying what? There is no other path for satisfying the Lord. Na anyat panta tat tosha karanam. This is exactly contradicting whom? No. In the Bhagavatam. Sut Goswami. Because Sut Goswami is saying that one can be situated in Varnashram, but we should practice what? Parva Dharma, pure devotional service. And there is no other way the Lord can be satisfied. But the Lord is satisfied by performance of what? Karma. In the form of Varnashram. And there is no other way. So it looks like performance of Varnashram is the means by one can satisfy the Lord. And there is no other means. And who is saying this? Parashar in the Vishnu Puran. Right? So this is exactly contradictory to Sutta Goswami's conclusion in the Bhagavad Puran. So let us now resolve this contradiction. This Vishnu Puran verse substantiates that karma is the anga of bhakti. But this bhakti is what kind of bhakti? Mishra bhakti. It is not Shuddha bhakti. So it is considered an anga bhakti of Mishra bhakti. For that verse, for in that verse, there is evident approval for worshipping Vishnu in combination with Varnashram activities. Karma arpanam. You can do karma arpanam. And that is bhakti. But that bhakti is what? Mishra bhakti. Yat karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad joasi, dadasi, yat tapasyasya kaunteya, tat kurusva madarpanam. Whatever you want, you do. But then you offer it to me. Whatever I want you do, then it is pure devotion service. Get the difference? What I means not I, Krishna. I'm saying. However, the author states that the consensus of those thoroughly experienced in bhakti, the pure devotees, including Parashar, is otherwise. So, those who are thoroughly experienced, that is the pure devotees, and including Parashar, it is otherwise. Parashar has said, what he has said? Yagyesha Govinda Madhavananta Keshava Krishna Vishnu Rishikeshatya Aha Rajasa Kevalam Nanya Jagada Maitreya Kinchit Swapnantareshvapi. Oh Maitreya, Parashara is saying the same again in the Vishnu Puran. King Bharat, Raja, simply said Aha Kevalam. O Master of Sacrifice, Yagesh, O Achyuta, Govinda, Madhav, Ananta, Keshava, Krishna, Vishnu, Rishikesh. He said nothing else. Nanya Jagada Kinchit, even in his dreams. So Parashar himself is saying that one who has got adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti, he can only practice the limbs of Shuddha Bhakti. Thus, the statement quoted from Vishnu Puran that approves Varnashram as Bhakti has been spoken only to encourage those persons who are not qualified for pure Bhakti. They are not qualified for pure Bhakti. Otherwise, what will happen if those who don't have adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti, then they will go to Adharma. Whereas if they practice Varnashrama, they'll lead a pure life at least. And that Varnashrama gives the facility by which they'll be able to have sadhu sangha and they'll be able to take up to Shuddha Bhakti. So that is the deeper plan of the Lord. It is a Varnashram where the best means by which one can be situated and he can take up to pure devotional service. And that is why in the Ramanand Rai Samvad and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you know, everything, Varnashram also he said, Eho Bhai. Sarva Dharman Parititya, Eho Bhai he said. You know, when he said, Jnane Prayas Udapasana Eho Hai, Aage Kaho Aur, he said. Only to this verse he said. Because Sthane Sthita. Sthane Sthita means what there? Sthane Sthita means be situated according to your Varna and Ashram, wherever you are. You need not change that position. And just here. And from there your progress will begin. So that is why. So that is the deeper meaning of this. Okay, so we will continue this discussion tomorrow. And after he establishes now that it is Shuddha Bhakti, which is the Abhidheya, now that glory of Shuddha Bhakti, he will establish, and that in two classes, tomorrow and day after, we'll see. And that is a very beautiful discussion about the glory of Shuddha Bhakti. So we will see that tomorrow and day after. So, any questions you have regarding this discussion, what we have today about these verses? One, two, three. Yes, you can start. You have the mic. Any questions there? Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you so much for the wonderful discussion yesterday. My question was in the beginning when we were discussing about awareness, we were saying that until one is digested, actually, the material world, one cannot take up pure devotional service. Till then, one should continue Navanasana.
No, right now it is, see, for us, situation is, I'll give you a simple example. When we take up the practice of bhakti, I'm just saying bhakti, okay? When we come in touch with Krishna consciousness and we take up the practice of chanting Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and we become devotees, we have inclination based on our conditioning, whether we are an engineer or a doctor or whatever the profession, you know, and that inclination is very strong. The impressions are very strong, and that inclination pushes us to do those activities also based on that designation, based on the swabha. So we are doing those activities because we have liking, but we are also practicing bhakti. Yes, but a point comes when we are doing these two activities together parallel. The point comes at certain point we feel like, now I don't want to do these activities. I am done with it. Now I want to only practice devotion. So it is a stage where you have attained maturity by doing those activities, seeing the results of it, and offering the results to Krishna or facing the consequences there. You know, like I remember, I know one very senior devotee, very humble, down to earth. He's now maybe in his 80s. I'm supposed to go and meet him. I will meet him definitely. He told me he was like one of the few Indians who had done that time, engineering, computer science engineering. And he was in America working for a big, software giant. And he had come to India and he was supposed to start his own software company. And that is the point, he got into devotional service. And he had this great desire to build a big company. But the kind of losses he suffered with this company that he gave up and he full time took to practice. So that that happens with maturity of going through it, suffering the consequences, and directly realizing it, and then nirvinna sarva karmasu happens. And only then, it's not that you just, like you just cannot give up doing action, whether you're in the conditioned state or you're beyond conditions. In the conditioned state, the actions are impelled by the modes. You have to understand. So, based on sabhava, influence of the modes in the heart, and the influence of the modes which are acting externally, you are doing activities. But when you are liberated, you are influenced by what now? The Swarup Shakti of the Lord. And you are doing actions. And all those actions are what now? Pure devotional service. Because you are beyond the modes. Sa samite itayan brahma bhoyaya kalpate. Mamcha vyabhicharin bhakti yogena sevate. Sa gunan samite itan brahma bhoyaya. You are beyond. So that time your impel or your impetus, that impetus is a spiritual impetus. But right now the impetus is what? The modes and the conditioning. Like this afternoon, I asked Dinesh Prabhu, why did he not go for the Nishta camp? And he said, my authorities have told me to stay back to see the construction work here. I said, what is your profession? He said, electrical engineering. They have told me to see all the electrical. So that nature you are using in Krishna's service now. You know, it is there, right? It is there. But you are using in Krishna's service. At the same time, you are doing the core activities like hearing, chanting. But there is a balance, both the activities, right? You cannot give up that. Neither you can 100% do all the time this, right? You have to do a balance. So nirvinna sarva karmasu is a sign of maturity when you have attained that state and that realization. And not only realization, you are free from the influence of the modes. Then only nirvinna sarva karmasu can happen. Is it clear?
Yeah, so I was just asking one line I want to heard. Sometimes while doing duties,
Yeah.
daily duties, there is frustration.
Yes.
Correct.
Uh,
So how is that different from like I'm done with this before? What you are saying?
so that frustration is temporary because you don't get the results what you desire. So that's why it requires maturity, that you should do your duty in a very detached spirit. To be situated in yoga is not an easy thing. Yogastu kuru karmani sangam tyatva dhananjan siddha siddha samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. This is what is defined as yoga. To maintain equanimity, whether it is victory or defeat. Now we can understand the dualities of this heat and cold, how much they affect us and affect our sadhana, right? So heat and cold affect the body, and sukha and dukkha. When we're chanting, why did he tell that to me? Yeah. So they affect our mind, and man and apman affect the ego. So all these dualities, when they don't affect you and maintain, you can maintain equanimity in both states. Then you have attained a certain stage of yoga. Then you can go further in yoga. So first you have to come to this point of what? Equan. So that states what you go through when you do your conditional activities, all those states, fluctuations, what you go through, ultimately it is meant for you to come to the state of equanimity. Then from there is progress of purification happening. Okay? Yes, Prabhuji. What is your name? Huh? Tarun Krishna Prabhuji, yes.
So my question is that you told that when the reaction comes from the devotee, is shaken up. So my question is, why does not does it? He doesn't have any other means to, there's no devotee can help.
Pardon?
If God wants to do something with a devotee,
Hmm.
why only giving bad reaction?
Hmm.
Some other way will be there. Why does God take such hard decisions?
One time, one sannyasi told me one of his disciples went and prayed to Krishna Balram, "My Lord, please make me very quickly a pure devotee." So he prayed like that. And after a few months, he had a lot of health issues and troubles in his life. After that, he came and prayed to Krishna Balram, "My dear Lord, please purify me very, very slowly," he said. So, the point is that when we are tested, the dualities of this material world in the form of miseries are and affect only the body and the mind. They have nothing to do with the soul. Just like, there is the moon out there, it is there in the sky, and the moon's reflection is in the water. And when there are wrinkles in the water, then the moon seems to be shaking. But is the moon shaking? The moon is situated in its own glory, and it's completely oblivious to him. So all the upheavals in the material world which happen, you know, all that has to do nothing to do with the soul. So all these are given to the devotee to realize it is Krishna's mercy actually. That is why Krishna is saying, Yasyaham Anugraham. So to realize that it is mercy also takes some time. That all that is mercy actually. So that is why it requires deep faith, I was mentioning. That whatever is happening in the devotee's life is actually Krishna's mercy. But when we don't have that kind of faith, we become shaken. And that, you know, is made to awaken us, to wake us up, so that we can grow. It is Krishna's way. And we cannot challenge why Krishna does this way. He is independent and Swaraj.
That is multiple that others one also, right? Because same there also their body and mind are having some disturbance. So how is it that this is Krishna mercy and that is some prana,
For whom that means?
Jnani and other people, like
No.
yogis,
Yeah, so for them, Krishna is, as Paramatma, is neutral. He is giving the karma phala. That's it. For the devotees, he is directly intervening. Samoham sarva bhutesh. But ye bhajanti tumam bhakti. So Krishna is impartial to his devotees because as Bhagwan, he reciprocates. But as Paramatma, he is Sama. So for them, they go through the reactions as per the prarabdha. That's how it is. One last question. Yes, Prabhuji. No, you had asked. You had raised your hand, no? Yes.
translation, second verse which you told, like the literal translation, but well equipped with knowledge and detachment, and then he practices devotion. Main activity is that is doing devotional service, but he's equipped with knowledge and vairagya.
No.
So is it like if so it seems that all three are present together.
No, that's what I very much clarified. Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Pashyan Atmani Chatmani means for the Jnanis and the Yogis who realize either the Brahman or the Paramatma, they have to practice Jnana and Vairagya as Angas Bhakti. But for those who are devotees who realize the absolute truth, they have to only practice devotional service and they need not practice Jnana and Vairagya, Gyan and Vairagya automatically manifest. So that I made it very clear.
But is this verse valid to general people? Because I'm saying the translation of the words.
No, you just cannot understand the verse by the translation. You have to understand the meaning given in the commentary and by the acharyas. Because the absolute truth is Tat. Tat Shraddadana Munayo. And it refers to Tat means Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So the Brahman and for the Paramatma, Jnana Vairagya Yukti. But for the Bhakta, Shruti Grihitaya. Just by the process of hearing and chanting, they can realize Bhagavan and they need not practice Jnana and Vairagya. Okay? So thank you very, very much. Yes, Prabhuji. No, no, he has a question. Give the mic there.
Hare Krishna Bhagavan. Yesterday only you asked this question. Like yesterday you talked about this sadhana bhakti.
Yes.
Shuddha sadhana bhakti, okay. And you said that it is a raw fruit and that your bhakti is the ripened fruit, same thing.
The unripe fruit and the ripe fruit.
Yeah. So, like, and you give the example of pizza. So, the person who is able to perfectly follow that sadhana, okay. So, we see that in that lot of actually austerity is also there, the sense of detachment is there. Like, he is able to give up the desire for that, whatever pizza or something, anything like that. So, that is because of variety that is actually the mercy.
The ability to give up desires for sense enjoyment comes with the practice of bhakti. The higher taste, what he is tasting in bhakti. And because of that higher taste, he is completely, feels inferior. All these other are inferior. It is directly coming from bhakti.
But that is because of long drawn practice or because of mercy? Because from that Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti to the pure Prema Bhakti, you say it's only the matter of getting ripened.
Correct, correct.
That means mercy is from before Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti or after Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti to pure Bhakti.
The mercy is always there, right from the beginning stages of bhakti. But it is the point where one takes up to that practice of Shuddha Sadhana Bhakti. Mercy is always there, but it is also one's endeavor to attain the goal. So both are there, both factors are there. But mercy is there.
And that
The more
endeavor is called the little, you said that the little variety which person has to give
no,
like the
no, not the
examples.
little vairagya. The endeavor is bhakti prayas. The endeavor is to do endeavor in bhakti and not anything else. Like now the endeavor is to hear Krishna Katha. The endeavor is to come for morning Mangalarti. Endeavor is to sit and chant attentively. All these are bhakti prayas. That endeavor is required.
And the higher taste because of which he is able to give up, that is mercy.
Yes, both by the practice of sadhana and by Lord's mercy. Raga desha vimuktestu vishayan indriyascharan atma vashair vidyatma prasadam adhikachati. When one becomes free from the dualities of raga and dvesh by following the rules and regulations and is situated in the self, then prasadam adhikachati. He gets the mercy of the Lord. So by your sincere endeavors and practices, the Lord bestows His mercy. And that mercy begins from coming in touch with the sadhu. The sadhu has shown mercy, and by his mercy, you have got bhakti. From there it begins, and it always is there. Everything ultimately depends on the mercy, but the mercy is always there, but the sadhaka's endeavor is also there.
So it's the same like the Narad example where he met the
Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti
Bhakti
Vedanta.
Vedanta, and from him basically got. That is why when he saw the Lord said that some more practices there.
Yes.
So by that time he was doing Shuddha Sadhana.
Yes. Yeah. That is also the mercy of the Lord. The sending of the Bhakti Vedantas is also the mercy of the Lord. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Correct, na? So at all stages it is the mercy of the Lord, and it is also the sadhaka's endeavors. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.